What's going on, everyone? So, Victor Wembanyama is returning this season. We're all excited, right? Can he start taking those next steps? Can he start taking those next leaps, right? Last year, top 10, top 15 player at worst, right? Can he start moving into that maybe top 7, top 5 range for the San Antonio Spurs, right? Like, this team is going to go as far as Wemby takes them. He's their best player, right? He's the guy that has that transcending talent, right? Dylan Harper and some of these other guys might get there, but they're not there yet, and they're likely not going to be there yet, right? De'Aaron Fox, excellent all-star point guard, but no, he's not like a top 5, top 10, top even 15 player in the league. Right? He's a very good player, but he's limited in what he can do and what he can achieve. So a lot of this rests on Wemby, and it's probably going to be that way his entire career. But he's going to be the guy. He's going to be one of the top players, if not the top player in all of basketball, maybe as soon as next season. Right? He's already arguably the best defensive player in all of basketball. Right? He's going to win multiple Defensive Player of the Year awards. Right? The guy is an absolute menace on that end. The offensive side of things, right, continue to grow, develop his efficiency. Not a big fan of him taking 8 threes a game, right? Especially at the lack of efficiency that he does it on. If he was like 42% from 3, it's like, sure, jack up, take another 2, right? Like, you might as well shoot 10 because you're going to make at least 4 of them, right? But that's the thing, is the efficiency needs to get better and improved, and maybe he will get there, right? We'll see what kind of strides and growth he takes between year 2 and year 3, right? But Victor Wembanyama recently spoke about kind of his unorthodox type of training regime this offseason, right? You saw him all over Asia, and he's, working with monks and, playing basketball and doing all this stuff. And Victor Wembanyama himself said he feels good after his trip. Victor Wembanyama believes unconventional training in Asia has prepped him for a return. And this is from ESPN. And he talked about how, actually gave us several kind of insights about just his health, that he's cleared, good to go. He's been medically cleared. Also, he was asked, how does he feel about not going and getting a Kevin Durant or something like that? And he even said that, hey, he doesn't want, very rarely does that work, where you're trading a young core and foundation to go get a guy and make an immediate impact. And look, one of the big things that I talked about on this channel was is Kevin Durant the guy that puts you over the top, right? Because if he is, then you do whatever you have to go get him, right? If you believe De'Aaron Fox, Victor Wembanyama, and Kevin Durant can go win you a championship this year, then you do it, right? But if you don't, and you believe you need other things, then unless you're getting him for, pennies on the dollar, right, an opportunistic trade, like a De'Aaron Fox situation, then you leave him be, right? Because if you go get Kevin Durant, at that point, you're all in. You don't go trade for a 35, 36-year-old to just go, hey, we're going to carve this out for the next 3 or 4 years, right? You go do that because it's like, hey, we want to win right this second. So it's like, you got De'Aaron Fox, you got Victor Wembanyama, you got Kevin Durant, and now we're going to pony up and give up, whatever we have to go get that other piece or two. Maybe Harrison Barnes on the other wing, and let's just go get a better kind of two-way, guy or another star, so whatever, right? Like, you're all in at that point. Right? So it made sense for them to kind of stay the course and to continue to stay the course. But it's nice when you have your franchise guy that is vouching for that. And it's like, hey, I'm glad that they're staying the course. I'm glad that we're keeping the young core. Let's grow this and build it out. He used the word balance, right? He wants the balance on this roster, the balance on this team, right? The new CBA does make things a little difficult, right, as things progress, but something that the Spurs can navigate and figure out. I'm not too worried in that regard. But I do like that Wemby kind of, gave us some insight and because you see a lot of players will kind of try to tiptoe around those things, or, they'll kind of be like, I support whatever the front office does, right? But, Wemby said, look, I support it. I like it. This is why. Here's why. Also, the Spurs have a history, of being able to kind of build this out and carve this out, right? You saw the dynasty in the past, right? So Wemby's looking at this and going like, there's evidence of this working. Then, you look at a team like the Thunder. Now, again, it's the Thunder are an outlier. That doesn't mean that it's such an outlier that it's never going to be able to be replicated. But if it was as easy as hey, you just go get these guys and then now you win a championship in a couple years, every team in the league would be doing that, every few years, but it doesn't, right? The Thunder just had the right culmination of things, going and getting SGA and SGA becoming a top 3 player in the league. And then Jalen Williams, moving up and becoming, a top 20 player in the league. And then, Chet Holmgren, being what he is. And then you get Alex Cruz, like all the pieces kind of align. And then the run this season, so on and so forth. Like it just was the perfect storm. And that's usually how it goes. So again, the Spurs, if they can kind of, Wemby now moves into the top 5. And then, you have De'Aaron Fox doing De'Aaron Fox things. And then, a Dylan Harper in a year or two ends up moving into, maybe he's a top 20 player in the league or something. And all of a sudden these pieces start to really rack up. Now you're replicating what has been done with the Thunder. Right? So it is still very possible. But, Brian Wright also added that Wemby has a thirst for pushing boundaries physically and mentally, and he came away from training believing it did him some good, is what Brian Wright ended up following up with. And then, Victor Wembanyama spoke on the shop about how he was doing Kung Fu training and spent some time with the Shaolin Temple in China. He said, Kung Fu every day. I was like a vegan temple monastery. I was isolated. It was a great experience. My goal going there was putting my body through things that it's not used to doing and allowing my range of movement and strength. This was probably as very different as possible from what I used to doing. So again, he's trying to find those creative ways and expand his mind and expand his training and, working on various movements and stuff, and just, again, put on some weight. He's doing all these things to try to improve his mental state and his physicality and all of that, right? Like those are all good things if you can kind of push yourself, right? Like Phil Jackson, the great Phil Jackson, the Zen master, right? He was just a master at just he knew all these little tricks and things to kind of get players to focus and center and have them read books and meditate and do all this other stuff. Some guys really take to that stuff. So Victor Wembanyama, him going to these headspaces and being in isolation and working through all this stuff, if it works and it allows him to kind of unlock another level, and I don't care what it is. I mean, if he was like, hey, I just, spent a month atop Mount Everest, it's like, what? But if the next year he's a 35, 12, 5 and 5 guy, it's just, hey man, go spend another month up there, right? I don't care how crazy, I don't care how unorthodox, I don't care what it is. If it improves and Victor believes that it improves him as a player, mentally, physically, spiritually, whatever, right? To make him the best basketball player possible, then let him do it again next year, right? Force him to do it if he's like, whatever you got to do to make him the best version possible. But I'm glad he's back. I'm glad that his confidence is high. I'm glad that he's feeling good and he's planning on, kind of taking that next step and that next level. And we'll see, right? The season will be here before we know it. But let me know your thoughts and opinions down in the comments. That being said, if you haven't liked this video, hit that like button. Helps me out as we enjoy these types of videos, and I truly appreciate it. Not subscribe channel, hit that subscribe button, turn on the bell notifications. Appreciate y'all. See you in the next one. Thank you.